All right, hi everyone. Welcome to the session. Um, I think this will be the last session before our Christmas break, and then we'll get started up with these again in the new year. I decided to do something a bit fun, maybe a bit interesting. So I'll quickly show you how this works. We're going to be decorating a Christmas tree with baubles. So if you click off the Christmas tree, nothing happens. So that's one thing. If you haven't selected a bauble, there's an alert to tell you that you need to choose a bauble. And then you go across and you select them and add them to the tree wherever you would like. Okay. So that's the basics of what we're going to be creating. So here's my project here. And I'm just going to quickly create my file. So I've got an index.html. I have a CSS folder and a JS folder. Inside of there, I have a styles.css and a script.js. I'll zoom in a little bit so it's easier for you guys to see what's happening. Then I'll go and create a HTML document here. Let's call this Christmas tree decorating. Hit save on that. And what we can do is we'll have an image and have our images, and we'll have the Christmas tree of Christmas tree. And then I need to have the baubles. So I'll have a div class baubles. I feel like I'm going to say the word bauble more than I have ever in my life. But here we are. And then inside of that, there are 3 images. So I'll just have images. And then that's just bauble 2 and bauble 3. Save that. You open this in live server. Okay, so we need to add a little bit of CSS here. So let me just link to my CSS file. And just above my closing body tag, I'm going to have my script. And I'll just set the source here. It's JS, scripts.js. Okay, so that's all my files are now linked up correctly. I'm just going to go into my CSS. I'm just going to apply this. That's just like a background color. I went to like linear gradient generator or something like that, and then just generates the gradient for you. You can play around and see what you want in it. I'd like to add a class to this. So I'm just going to add class of tree. And also I want to add a class to the baubles as well. So these can be a width of 50 pixels, so much smaller than they currently are. And the tree can be, let's say, 90 v8. Let's try that. I actually want these baubles to be at the top of the page. So I'm going to set them to position, say position fixed, left of 0 pixels, minus 0 pixels, 0 pixels, and a top of 0 pixels. That's yes, that's correct, right? But they're now stacking up on top of each other. Oh, it's because I've given them the same class. Whoops. There should be bauble singular. Because I want to just target the group there, not the individual ones. And then this width of 50 pixels set on bauble. Okay, so they're now appearing at the top of the page. I think I'm going to actually make the tree 100 VH. There we are. So now it's 100 of the viewport. So there we go. So it's kind of like the basic layout of our page. Now let's look at the JavaScript, and we can work on that. So I'm going to say here, so I'm selecting the tree element, right? So it's looking in the document, and there's the class of tree. So it looks in the documents to try and find something that matches this query selector. And I'm going to say that tree.onClick runs the following function. And we'll just console log. Okay. So you can take a look in the console. And if we click on the tree, it says yay. But what you might notice, well, you wouldn't notice because you don't have the code on your side. But if I click outside of what I would think is the image, it still registers that click, right? So if we look at this image, you can see that it is this entire block, right? Because the images are rendered as blocks like this. So that's going to be a problem. If we only want the baubles to be added on the tree, it doesn't make sense that they're just kind of like hanging in midair. So rather than actually adding it as an image, what I could do, got Illustrator open here, is that I can save it as an SVG and add that instead. So if I go File, Save As, save SVG, yes. You'll see when I come to this SVG options, I can click SVG code, and it gives me the code to use to be able to generate this image. So I'll just copy that SVG there. And now, let me look here. So now instead of having this image there, I'm now going to paste in an SVG. I'll just give it that class. And let me add that class of tree, SVG. And there you can see, maybe there's a height set here or something. Anyway, I'll show you the point of the okay, well, I actually have to change my, so I've still selected the tree, so I'm still selecting this tree class. There we go. Okay, I just needed to refresh. So you can see I'm still selecting this tree class. If we look in the scripts, So I'm still selecting that tree element. And if I click on the tree, it says yay. If I click slightly outside the tree, let's see what happens. Uh-oh, you can see the numbers changing over there. If you're not seeing it display down, it is changing that number. So there you can see that number changes, but if you click slightly outside, you can see that number changes as well. So what to do? What we can do instead of selecting that whole tree element is that if you look in the HTML, you can see that this SVG is built up of polygons. So if we look in Illustrator here, you can see that when I hover over them, you can see that it gets that kind of blue outline, and it's these polygons that actually build up this image. So what I can do is I can select those polygons, right? So I'm going to select the polygon elements here. So I'm going to say inside .tree, look for the polygon, because maybe we'll have an SVG somewhere else on the page. What's important to remember here is that these selectors are written just like your CSS selectors. And so just as you would kind of have descendant selectors in CSS, you can do the same in JavaScript as well. But because we have multiple items, so we can just see what happens here if I just have this. Okay, so now if I'm clicking what are supposed to be the polygons, nothing actually happens. It maybe is. And the reason for that, I was hoping to be able to accidentally, there we are. I found the one polygon that it's selecting, right? So query selector finds the first element that matches that query, that selector, and then it stops. It doesn't get all of them. If you want to get all of the items, then you need to use query selector all. But now actually nothing will run. And the reason why that is because of the nature of what query selector all returns for us. So if you have a look, console.log tree, let's have a look and see what happens here. So when that runs, you can see it selects the selector, and you can even see there it highlights it for me in my with the dev tools, which is nice. But if I say query selector all, so remember that it was the whole element which gets selected here, and then I can use dot notation to access the properties of it. So say something like inner HTML, for example, which you'll be familiar with possibly. So instead of just having that whole element as in a single element selected, let's save this. And what you see is it returns something called a node list. And a node list, you can see the square brackets there. Because it works similar to an array, it's not an array, it's a node list, but it works in a similar way to the way that we would work with an array. And so you get this list of all of the different items that have matched that query selector. So now to be able to add this on click, what I need to do, so I'm not going to say that this isn't a tree, I'm going to say this is a, I guess you could call it branches maybe, or tree pieces, maybe that's better, I don't know. And so tree pieces dot for each. You're not familiar with for each, so that's just going to run a function for every item inside of this element here. And then we can set the name for each item in our array, which I'm going to say, I'm going to call it, I don't know, how would we call it, item. Item. And I'll say item.onClick. Okay, so let's see how that works. Save that. And now if we click the different, you can see that number's changing. Now when we click those different elements, it changes. If we click just outside, as in not on a polygon, it doesn't register that click. All right, so that's kind of the first little bit of the puzzle. The next is that I need to know where what is actually being clicked. So I'm going to put in a parameter. the event parameter, and I'll console log the event parameter, and let's see what we're getting back there. Okay, so here it tells me that the event that has happened is a click event. It tells me where it's happened, polygon ST3, but it also gives me some other information as well. One of them is page X and page Y. So I can go and, let me look. So I've made a second click. I can choose one that's not ST3. Okay, doesn't really matter. But here you can see where the click has happened. And so this gives me kind of coordinates that I can use to be able to add something to the page. All right. So I'm going to be able to use those coordinates to be able to add my element to the page. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create the element that I want to add to the page. So I'm going to say const decoration is document create element, and I'll create an image. And I can try and just add this to, what's my phone doing? Sorry, my phone thinks I'm needing help. Okay, so I'm going to also select the, I'm going to select the tree itself. So I'm going to say, well, actually I can just add it to the body, right? So I'll say when it does this, document.body append child, and I'll add this decoration element to the page. That's going to create an element and add it to the page. So let's see what happens. Right, so I've clicked, and let's see. You can see it's now added because I clicked twice. It's added 2 images to the page. I mean, they don't have any properties or anything. They're just image elements. But what's happened is I've created it and I've added it to the page. What I can do is maybe what I'll do as well is I'll quickly console log this decoration, console log decoration. Let's have a look. So if we go here, and you can see how I selected that that first polygon or the tree. It's the same looking thing. So I'm just getting an element which has been created, and that element has properties. And I can add and change properties. One of those, because it's an image, is the source property, which you'll be familiar with. And so I can update and change that property. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. You can see also alt. Again, that's a property for an image element. Okay, so what we can do is, because we have the DOM, the document object model, we can select an element in the DOM and we can update the properties of that element. So we'll go and write here image dot decoration, whoops, decoration dot source equals say images, and it's bauble1.png. Okay, so let's run that. Now if I click on the page, you can see that that bauble gets added to the page. If you inspect it, we can see there now our it's not just an img tag, it now has the attribute source, and we can go ahead and update decoration dot alt equals Christmas mobile. Right, run that, click the page, and as you can see now, that now has the source of where I want, as well as the alt text that I've set for it. But I would like to position this on the tree where I've clicked. So what I need to do is I need to first make sure that all my baubles are positioned absolutely where I want them. So I will go here and I'll set that I want the bauble to be position absolute. And because it's set to position absolute, so if I just go in here, my dev tools, and I set this to position absolute. I think I styled the wrong thing there. But we can just have a look here. And I can set a left of 0 pixels, right, or a right of 0 pixels. So I'm like moving it around the page based on the absolute position. So actually going to my code and I'm going to add, going to make a new class here. Let's call it .decoration. And I will set that to have a width of, say, 30 pixels and I'm going to set it to position. Absolute. And now I can go in here and for now we're going to hand code this. So we'll say decoration.style.left of, let's say, 100 pixels, and put that in quotation marks. And let's say that's a top, and I need to add that class. And so what we could do is we could say decoration dot class name equals decoration. There are 2 ways of adding or updating classes, and one is class list.add. Class list.add, but since there's no class on this element yet, I'm using class name for that. So I'm going to add that decoration class to this element so that it picks up this styling which I've added here of this width and that position absolute. So now if I click the tree, you can see I get the bauble showing up over there. But what I actually need is I don't need this to be hard coded. What I need is that this gets that page X and page Y that we saw at the beginning. So we can say here events.pageX and event.pagey. And so if we go here now, oh, that's not right. Probably got my X should be the left and Y should be the top. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah. Why is it doing that now? If you spot the error, you're very welcome to, that's why, because it's supposed to be pixels. So this is a, okay, let's have a look now. And now wherever I click, it adds the bauble. If I click off the image, it doesn't work. Only when I click on the Christmas tree does it appear. But you might notice that the bauble kind of, it's a bit weird that it's kind of like off to the right and down. But you can see that kind of where my cursor is right now. Maybe, well, no, that's not going to help. But you can see that kind of, it's like on the top right edge, right over there, kind of like where my cursor is, and then it kind of drops the image down. Now to fix that, what we can do is we can use the transform property. So I'll go in here and it's my decoration that I want to change. So I'll set it to transform, translate, and I want minus 50%, minus 50%. I'll save that, refresh this page. And now you can see that what it does is it moves the point at which it bases its position off of, and it moves it down by 50% of the size. So it moves it down by 50% and across by 50%, so that now the center or the place, the positioning is based off of a position in the middle. Okay, I hope that that makes sense. So you're going 50% down, 50% across. Okay, but now you can see that that is all working. The one thing that's still happening is we're not able to select these. So we can go and do that. And that's relatively easy. So here we can just go and select our baubles and document.query selector all. Again, we want to use all because we want all three of those. And they are dot bauble. And so I'll say baubles dot for each. And I will say that we create a empty variable here. So I'll say let selected equal an empty string. And I'll say here that bauble.onClick equals a function which then sets this the value of selected bauble to equal, and I'll just say pass in this event parameter, and it should be events.target. And what I haven't done yet is what I want to set some data on these images here. So I'll go here and I'll just add some data, and I'll say data bauble equals 1, and I'll just copy that. I'll just make these 1, 2, and 3. What you can notice is that I specifically named my baubles 1, 2, and 3 like this, so that I could add that data 1, 2, and 3, so that when I know which bauble's been clicked, I can just add that 1 onto the end of the file path for that image. You could, I guess, put the entire file path for your image as the data, but that just seems a bit simpler to me. So I'll save that. And I can just quickly show you what's happening here. Console.log event. Okay, so if I go in and open my console, when I click on one of the baubles, so one, we know that this is now working, so that's just tested the fact that actually this onClick function is working here, onClick event. And if you drop that down, you can see that that it's got my data there. And if I want to be able to access that data, so if you look, so you can see there it's adding that data on. And what I can do is I'll access event.target.dataset. console, and you can see there it's bauble of 3, bauble of 2, bauble of 1. So I'll set this to be event.target.data set dot. Okay, so this is how I will select my bauble. If none is selected, so I should just make it a check here to see if it has been selected. So I'll say if selected bauble, notice the exclamation mark, so it's saying like a negative, so this is checking if it's a truthy or falsy value, and if it's just an empty string then it will be falsy. And I'll say here that if selected bauble is falsy, then we're just going to return an alert. I mean, personally, alerts aren't my favorite things in the world, but I mean, I could add this to inner HTML on the page and then remove that each time. But I just thought for the sake of speed, we could just use an alert. Please choose a bauble. Okay, so let's check that that works. So if I haven't selected a bauble, something's going wrong. Selected bauble, my bad. If selected bauble. So if I click and I haven't chosen one, it throws this alert, tells me to please choose a bauble. You'll notice that the formatting is a bit different. I think sometimes students might think that the formatting is going to be the same for alerts. So if you also don't have a lot of control over alerts. So you can see there that's how Chrome handles it. And there you can see that it actually still adds the item to the page. So even though it's told me, please choose a bauble, it goes ahead and runs anyway. So what I can do there is I can just tell it to return. And once you've told it to return inside of a function, it just cancels that function. And then none of the code below it runs, right? So here you can see nothing actually gets added to the page. It's only until I have selected a bauble that then it does actually work. But what you can see is that it's still not changing the name of the bauble. So what I can do there is I will go ahead and change inside of here. So I'll make this dynamic, and I will make that the selected bauble. Okay, so now let's test it out. If I haven't chosen one, it tells me to go over here and go choose one. And then I can change whatever bauble I'd like. Doesn't allow clicks off of the tree, only on the tree. All right, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. Hopefully that has been helpful, especially just interesting to know about create elements. So I could have added it to the page with inner HTML, but then if I wanted to change its styling and things like that, I would then kind of need to go and select it again from the page, and then I can add it. Whereas this is just feels a bit more orderly to my mind. Are there any questions? Please drop it in the chat. All right, if there's no questions, well, then I guess we can wrap it up. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining, guys. I hope that was interesting and a little bit of festive cheer. Cool. All right. Well, then we can end the session there. I hope you all have, well, we still got still a little bit more time in terms of before the Christmas break, one more week of class. But if I don't speak to you all individually, then I hope you all have a great Christmas holiday. And yeah, I'm sure we'll all chat soon. All right. Cheers, everyone. Bye. Have a good Christmas all. Bye.